kayamanan, alam ng puso sa dibdib mo'y buhay. Lupang inilang, duyan ka ng magiting, sa manlulupi, di ka pasisiil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong buhaw. May dalagang tulaan, awit sa paglayang pinamahal, ang kisap ng watawat, lu'y tagumpay na nagniningning, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may mag-inig. Lupa ng araw ng walhati puso ay langit sa piling ko. Aming ligaya na pag may mga alis na pumatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Bago pa man magsimulang tumigil ang mundo ng dahil sa pandemya, napakadami na namin ginaharap para lang magampanan ang aming tungkulin. Matugunan ang pangangailangan na nakararami. Simula sa lungkot na dala ng pagsampa hanggang sa iba't ibang klaseng trabaho na dinaranas namin sa araw-araw. Kalakip ang pangako ng magandang bukas. Patuloy kaming babangon para matugunan ang inyong pangangailangan. Patuloy namin iaalay ang aming oras at kakayahan para mapanatili kayong nakangiti. Patuloy kaming maglalayag sa iba't ibang dako ng mundo upang mapanatiling maayos ang inyong kalagayan. Ilan lang kami sa libu-libong manggagawa sa karagatan na nagnanais ng karampatang pagtrato at respeto. Para sa aming napiling larangan, sana sa araw na ito nilaan para sa amin, maisip mo rin kami. Nagmamahal ng marinong Pilipino.
future. fulfill your dreams. Whatever you're building, we'll be there to make your dreams fly in the air. Wilcon Depot can, yeah. Dream anything you can, build anything you can. Whatever it is, will be your hand to help you build your master plan. Wilcon Depot can build your future, fulfill your dreams. Whatever it is, will be your hand to help you build your master plan. Wilcon Depot can. Wilcon Depot can. Wilcon Depot. You can dream anything you can. Build anything, whatever it is, will be your hand to help you with your master plan. Wilcon Depot.
Pambansang Komisyon para sa Kultura at Mga Sining o ang National Commission for Culture and the Arts na nagpapanatiling laging umaapoy, magpakailanman ang lagablab ng imahinasyon para sa kasalukuyan na nagbibigay kapangyarihan sa sambayanang Pilipino. Sumasabuhay sa adhikain na ang kalinangang Filipino ay bukal ng kagalingang pambansa at pandaigdig. Sa hinaharap, inaasahan ang mas matatag na presensya sa mga rehiyon para sa mas malaganap na pagpapatupad ng mga polisiya at programang pangkultura. Ang lalo pang pagtataguyod ng mga creative industries. At ang patuloy na pagsigaw ng adhikain, ang ating kultura, marangal. Malikhain. Mapagbago. Filipino.
Honorable Christopher Toff de Venecia, Representative of the 4th District of Pangasinan. Honorable Rafaelita Aldaba, Undersecretary of the Department of Trade and Industry. Mr. Kenneth Cobonpue, renowned international designer. Ms. Merlee Jayme of Dentsu International. Mr. Ian Monsod of Warner Music Philippines. Ms. Rosemary Bosch-Ong of Wilcon Depot. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. On behalf of the Manila Times, welcome to today's forum on creative industries. Today's topic is interesting because it draws our attention to the future. Besides hoping for an end to the pandemic and the resulting economic crisis, many of us are pondering what the new normal will be like. We are eager to resume our lives, even though many of us expect that some parts of it may have changed forever. The question, of course, is how. Some might suggest that we do not have to look far, given the success of the so-called Asian tiger economies, and of course China. But their examples have been difficult for others, including the Philippines, to replicate. And despite the fact that each country is different, policymakers, journalists, and others tend to react to the success around us by asking why the Philippines could not follow their example. In fact, this has been the subject of many discussions and editorials in the Manila Times. The topic today suggests that instead of looking elsewhere for inspiration, we may have the solutions within ourselves. The general assumption is that Filipinos are talented in the arts and generally creative, but our ability to harness that in order to realize economic returns has yielded only limited success. I believe that we are here today, particular speakers, because we are confident that Filipinos are capable of more. The question we would like to explore today is, will it be enough to match the returns realized by our successful neighbors that harness traditional hard industries like manufacturing? In discussing plans, we cannot effectively move forward without also learning from the past. We cannot deny that long before the present campaign to organize and develop our creative industries, the Philippines was a leader in that arena, particularly in the local movie industry. But now we have a sense of being left behind as we see the success of Japan with design, among other things, and of course of South Korea with K-pop and K-drama, and even of Singapore with the novel turned Hollywood film Crazy Rich Asians. Can the Philippine cinema and other sectors of the creative sector regain leadership? Perhaps our speakers today will have insights into that. We expect that they will also explain the broad scope covered by the term creative industries and inspire us with ideas and plans on how to tap our nurture and our natural competitive advantage as Filipinos. Before I yield the screen, though, allow me on behalf of the Manila Times, which is celebrating its 123rd anniversary this year, to express our appreciation to the partners and supporters who made this event possible. Thank you to our co-presenters, Design Center of the Philippines and Wilcon Depot. Thank you to our special partners, Hotel Okura, who also will be supplying our lunchboxes today, to Las Casas Filipinas de Acuzar, the National Commission for Culture and the Arts, or NCAA. Thank you also to our organizational partners, the British Chamber of Commerce of the Philippines, the French Chamber of Commerce and Industry in the Philippines, the Davao Chamber of Commerce and Industry Incorporated, the Financial Executives Institute of the Philippines, or FINEX, the Italian Chamber of Commerce in the Philippines Incorporated, the Management Association of the Philippines, or MAP, and last but not least, our media partner, the Manila Times. Thank you also to those watching this forum live stream on the Manila Times website and on the Facebook of the Manila Times and on the Manila Times channel on the mobile phone app live. I also want to greet those watching this event at a later time and mention that reports of today's events will be published in the Manila Times and its improved version, the Manila Times Digital Edition. Again, thank you, and let's get on with our program. So let me introduce our first speaker today. He is the Honorable Christopher Vera Perez de Venecia. He finished his elementary studies at the Colegio de San Juan Agustin in Makati and his secondary education at the Ateneo de Manila High School, serving as features and then associate editor of the Hillites magazine. He holds a bachelor's degree in political science at the Ateneo de Manila University and recently finished courses at the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, completing the public leadership program. He was the former lifestyle editor of Chalk magazine and previously a contributing editor and columnist for the Philippine Star's News section for 13 years. He's a proud millennial with a background in theater arts and communication, having founded two of Manila's foremost theater companies, Nineworks Theatrical and the Sandbox Collective. At present, he is the representative of the 4th District of Pangasinan, sitting as the Deputy Majority Leader of the Lower House. He's also the chairman of the Social Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts. In addition, he is also a member of numerous committees, notably the Committee on Basic Education and Culture and the Committee on Tourism, where he champions his culture and tourism advocacies. He is the lead convener of the 55-member Arts and Culture and Creative Industries Bloc, or ACHIEVE, of the 18th Congress, with 11 deputy speakers and 20 committee chairpersons as members, which seeks to introduce and support legislation that protect, promote, and bolster arts, culture, and the Philippine creative industries. He is the principal author of the following measures, among others in agriculture, the Magna Carta for Young Farmers, the Integrated Urban Agriculture Bill, the Aqua Negosyo Program Bill. And in the creative industries, he authored the Philippine Creative Industries Bill, the Eddie Garcia Bill, the Freelancers Protection Bill, the Audiovisual Tourism Bill, the Fund Our Museums Bill, the Philippine Music Industry Bill, the Film and Live Events Recovery Bill. With the rigor of both his parliamentary work and his constituency work in the district, he advocates multi-sectoral collaboration and expansion of livelihood in the rural countryside through various forms of tourism and agricultural modernization, as well as galvanizing culture and creative industry for economic growth and nation building. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman De Venecia.
Thank you so much, Clink. That was a comprehensive introduction. Thank you so much, and greetings to everyone, to DTI USEC, Fita Aldaba of the Competitiveness and Innovation Group, to Kenneth Cobonpue, esteemed and celebrated international furniture designer, to Ms. Merlee Jayme, Chief Creative Officer of Dentsu International for Asia and the Pacific, to Ian Monsod, Managing Director of Warner Music Philippines, to Rosemary Bosch-Ong, Senior EVP and Chief Operating Officer of Wilcon Depot Inc., to Clink, President and CEO of the Manila Times, Mr. Dante Clink Ang, to Ben Kritz, columnist at the Manila Times, to the Filipino creatives watching this forum, ladies and gentlemen, isang malikhaing pagbati po sa inyong lahat. So let me start with 4 numbers that I feel every Filipino should know by now. 2030. The year 2030 is the target year set by the Creative Economy Council of the Philippines as the year when the Philippines should have become the #1 creative economy in the ASEAN. CECP founder Paolo Mercado has stated that this means being the best in terms of size and value for our creative industries, as well as the competitiveness and attractiveness of our creative talent and content in international markets. Practically speaking, this means that our country would produce the most number of graduates from creative fields, employ the highest number of creatives in our offices and firms, and give the most number of opportunities for our creative talent, and to even use creative industries as a way out of poverty, but talent for the impoverished but talented segments of society, among other economic indicators. This could also mean that our ASEAN neighbors would get to experience more about Filipino culture through the clothes they buy, the furniture they use, the food they eat, the songs they listen to, and even the vloggers that they watch. The goal is to create an environment where creatives feel safe to create, not just to make a living, but also to live a sustainable and happy life. From a basic look test, it's not difficult to see how talented Filipinos are in the creative industries. Filipinos achieve much in these fields with little to no government support. We produce the best singers, the best actors, even directors internationally. Hollywood's best entertainers have Filipino roots. And most recently, our stories are told and listened to across the globe through digital streaming platforms. But if you look at the numbers, the story can be quite different. The Philippines' overall competitiveness in the creative fields still needs improvement. Our creative GDP contribution of 7.34%, while significant, lags behind Thailand's 10%. Our 740,000 employed Filipinos in creative firms is way behind Indonesia's 15.9 million. Export data shows that we are 5th in ASEAN in terms of total exported goods and services. We are #1 in services, we are #5 in goods, and when it balances out in the end, we are 5th. But more than these numbers, we have also heard quite a handful of sob stories where opportunities for Filipino creatives were taken away by foreigners who appreciated the potential of our creative assets and at times our intellectual property. I'm sure Filipinos appreciate intellectual property, their own intellectual property, but it's also different when somebody makes an investment in it. And these investments in the past years have happened mostly through entities abroad. Our own Ilang Ilang is now the scent of Chanel #5. Piñatex, a special textile in a type of vegan leather that comes from the Philippines, was patented in Indonesia. The Filipino animated series Trece was actually produced and created in countries like South Korea and Malaysia. It's not that we need to be greedy, it's just that these opportunities could have generated more jobs and could have lifted families out of poverty if we were able to capitalize on them and seize them. Instead, we have continued to look outward for opportunities instead of looking inward into our country's greatest resources, our creatives and our creative talent. And even more recently, Filipinos pirating Filipino films, Filipinos selling counterfeit fashion and garment textiles, those that are allegedly produced in the Cordilleras but are actually contraband. Foreign firms copying the designs of our creatives, whether in furniture or fashion. These trends have to be mitigated at some point, and we feel that the time is now. As we celebrate 2021 as the International Year of Creative Economy for Sustainable Development, as declared by the UN General Assembly, we are seeking to push for two major pieces of legislation that would shift our narrative towards a more sustainable creative future. The first, the Philippine Creative Industries Development Bill. It sets forth a unifying framework to develop our siloed Philippine creative industries. It identifies what these industries are, first and foremost, breaking down the vast creative economy into 9 developmental domains, with a further disaggregation of around 50 sectors under these domains. These are audio and audiovisual media, so that includes film, radio, television, podcasts, etc. Digital interactive media, so this includes apps, esports, software and games. You also have creative services, to which live events and many other forms of services also belong. We have design, which is either communication design or object making design, which is fashion and furniture, or placemaking design, which is architecture, interior design, landscape architecture, environmental planning, and many others. There is books and publishing, to which, magazines, newspapers like the Manila Times, books, graphic novels, these are all part of that domain. Cultural sites, these are your libraries, these are your museums. Traditional cultural expressions, so this is where gastronomy belongs and many others. For example, like arts and crafts. You have visual arts, so that's painting, sculpture, performance art, not to be confused with performing arts, photography, and many others. And of course, the performing arts, which includes theater, dance, opera, the live component of music, and many others. Through this breakdown, policymakers and implementing agencies will be able to identify which sectors must be prioritized from an acceleration perspective and which sectors must be prioritized from a recovery perspective. The classification is also a means by which we ensure that all creative industries are represented and that no one is left behind. Especially now, it's time of pandemic, there are creative industries that are heavily impacted, like, for example, live events. Even film took a huge blow, as cinemas have remained closed for the past year and a half. But there are also creative industries that are agnostic of mass gathering and rely heavily on tech. And so if you were to create a roadmap for them, it would be more of an acceleration level, what areas of their value chain need to be addressed so that they will be able to scale and reach, global ubiquity. The bill also establishes a development plan that the NEDA, DTI, and private sector would craft, setting forth roadmaps and key results areas on how many jobs are created, how much contribution are they making to the GDP, how much intellectual property is being created, what's the value add, how much exports are they able to produce, among many other indicators. With a goal as clear as the 2030 target I started this speech with, steps, milestones, and targets must likewise pass the standard of being SMART, or specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. The proposed measure also creates a coordinating body that would implement this plan. This body, the Creative Industries Development Council, or the Creative Council, if you will be led by the DTI and the private sector as co-chairs, and will include key agencies such as the DepEd, the CHED, the Intellectual Property Office of the Philippines, the NCCA, the DICT, the DOST, and the DOT, as well as one private sector representative for each of these 9 domains. The Creative Council is also empowered to create ad hoc committees consisting of agencies and stakeholders that are most affected by specific issues being faced by the creative industries. But while high-level decisions are made by this well-represented council, the bill also creates a national secretariat headed by an executive director, which would execute the day-to-day functions of the Creative Council, ensuring that creative stakeholders will have a dedicated office just for their concerns. The bill also incorporates the tax breaks as already offered by the recently passed CREATE, or Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises Act. Apart from the reduced tax rates for corporations, which includes one-person corporations and other types of MSMEs, it also expands incentives and tax holidays for emerging industries, which includes our creative industries. To lighten the load of our creatives, the bill also seeks to establish creative hubs, creative zones, and more shared service facilities that are geared towards the sharing of costs and resources among creative entrepreneurs and workers. But more than the sharing of costs, we also believe that these physical spaces will establish a more enabling environment where creatives can even be more creative. As good as these may initially sound, we have been asked, what does all of this mean for the common creative folk? Think about the struggling musician, the underpaid writer, the moonlighting performer, the overworked gaffers and camera crew, or even the anxious fine arts student who needs to prove to his or her parents that a job in the creative field actually pays off. The creative bill went through 5 6 to 7 hour deliberations with stakeholders in the lower house, as well as tens of micro meetings and caucuses to ensure that the final version will be the most acceptable to all stakeholders. Through honest and meaningful conversations and generous contributions of ideas from both government and the private sector, we were able to insert key provisions as well as revise existing ones to ensure that this bill would benefit all, and especially the grassroots creatives. Let me also say first and foremost that better economic indicators don't only translate to better credit ratings by the international financial systems or some other random number that the government would brandish to the people. The economic goals of having a creative future aspires to give more, better, and more sustainable livelihood to the Filipino people. More important than economic indicators is the overall happiness that would be felt by our people, and the creative economy factors greatly into that. Planning and strategizing for a creative future does not mean boxing people's innate creative talents. All of these efforts would simply create opportunities that were not originally there, so that the small sari-sari store owner, the underpaid nurse, or the many unemployed Filipinos who have creative gifts but have no opportunity to share them may imagine a life as a creative. This bill is also a challenge to creative entrepreneurs to give sustainable and dignified jobs to more Filipinos as opportunities for them increase. Another important disclaimer is that a creative industries development bill will not clash with existing measures and indicators to preserve our national identity and culture. We believe that a creative future is a safe and sustainable future, and it should be. The bill doesn't leave behind the struggling creative. It seeks to give them opportunities for growth if and when they become ready. And it seeks to do so through a number of concrete measures. The bill repurposes our existing Go Negosyo centers to also become one-stop shops for creative freelancers and enterprises, so that registering one's business becomes less of an arduous and daunting task. A creative startup fund is also being set up to give grants of 50,000 pesos to creatives who are ready to enter the formal economy through business registration with the SEC, the BIR, and their respective LGUs. A digitalization fund is also sought to be offered for MSMEs who are formalized already but need support in the shift towards digital platforms. Co-working spaces shall also be established so that creatives who work from home can collaborate in physical spaces when they prefer to and cross-pollinate amazing ideas. A creative industry development fund is also set up that is primarily going to be distributed towards human resource development, research, and aid in times of calamities. The disbursement of this fund will also be subject to consultations with the stakeholders. Admittedly, however, there are existing practices in the creative field that can only be addressed by better regulation, especially on businesses and hiring parties. One cannot have its cake and eat it too. As opportunities for enterprises increase, so must their responsibilities towards the creatives whom they hire and collaborate with. This is where the Freelance Workers Protection Bill comes in. When passed into law, the Freelancers Bill will require written contracts in every working arrangement between a freelancer and the hiring party. The contract must, of course, be signed by all parties involved and must contain the following minimum clauses: the services to be provided by the freelancer, the details of compensation and benefits, including rate, method, and schedule of payment, the period of employment, the grounds for breach of contract on the part of both the hiring party and the freelancer, and the taxpayer identification number or TIN of the freelancer. The Freelance Bill also proposes a 10% night shift differential and a 25% hazard pay with flexibility clauses, because obviously the compensation of a freelancer is computed differently from that of a regular employee. It defines acts of violation, such as late payment or changing terms of payment halfway, among others, and provides for administrative penalties and fines ranging from 50,000 to 500,000 pesos. The bill also seeks to help freelancers establish themselves by helping them get into the formal economy. Freelancers will be mandated to register with a BIR for tax purposes so that they may start issuing official receipts, apart from the other benefits of being tax mapped, such as being able to access loans, apply for visas more easily, and work with multinationals. We are also mandating the BIR, the LGU, and other government agencies to create information drives to raise awareness among freelancers on procedures as well as their rights under the law. These drives also seek to spread awareness on existing tax benefits available under laws such as TRAIN and the Barangay Micro Business Enterprises Act of 2002, or the BMBE law. A proper lane for freelancers with the BIR revenue district offices shall be created for ease of transaction, as well as another lane with the Department of Labor and Employment as an alternative to the more intimidating court system in case there are violations of freelancers' rights. These shall be set up through the Undersecretary for Workers and Special Concerns. And above these specific measures, we also envision the Freelance Bill to usher in a snowball effect towards the recognition of freelancing as a unique way of making a living, which comes with its special and unique issues and concerns. These two bills, the Creative Industry Bill and the Freelance Bill, work hand in hand to elevate creative businesses and creative work, not only by generating jobs, opportunities, and other forms of economic activity, but also by raising the dignity of creatives and other freelancers as workers and as human beings. I began the speech by stating the possible economic indicators that would finally say that indeed, the Philippines is the #1 creative economy in the whole of ASEAN by 2030. But to be real about it, I feel that all of this talk on a creative future and the new creative economy ultimately boils down to a basic existential question. Will my creativity give me and my family a sustainable living in the future? As we aim for lofty economic goals, may we not lose sight of what all of these mean for each and every one of us. After all, a future that is creative must also be a future that is safe, sustainable, and happy. Thank you. And I'd just like to invite everybody listening to please join the Create Philippines Viber community. It's something that you can easily register to, and at least you'll keep updated with everything that's happening with the creative economy. There's also the Create Philippines website. It's createphilippines.com. Lots of articles, lots of content to consume about the creative industries. And we also have a Facebook page, the Arts and Culture and Creative Industries block of the 18th Congress, which we will start populating with content in case you want to keep track of everything we're doing in the lower house. Thank you so much and have a pleasant morning.
Thank you, Kong Toff, for that. I hope you can stay behind. I know we have a meeting this afternoon with the Committee on Basic Ed, but the question and answer portion of this program will follow. At this point, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, and she's none other than Dr. Rafaelita Fita M. Aldaba, who is Undersecretary for Competitiveness and Innovation of the Department of Trade and Industry. She fulfills a key role in the formulation and implementation of the Inclusive Innovation and Industrial Strategy, or IQS, which puts innovation at the heart of the country's new industrial policy. She is leading DTI's initiatives in preparing industries for the fourth industrial revolution and digital transformation, establishing regional inclusive innovation centers, and growing a robust startup ecosystem in the country. Undersecretary Aldaba is also a member of the Board of Governors of the Philippine Board of Investments, or BOI. She is a researcher turned policymaker and is a senior research fellow and acting vice president of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies. She has extensive research experience, authored various publications on development issues, and conceptualized and managed research projects with various international organizations, including the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, and the United States Agency for International Development. Undersecretary Aldaba. Yusek Fita.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Dante Cling-Ang, for the kind introduction. Congressman Toff de Venecia and fellow speakers and panelists, Mr. Cobonpue, Ms. Rosemary Bosch-Ong, Ms. Merlee Jayme, Mr. Ian Monsod. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's a great pleasure to share with you the work on the creative industries that DTI has been working on. And my presentation would be divided into three parts. In part one, I'll provide a brief overview of the creative industry in terms of the working definition and coverage, along with its economic contribution. In part two, I will discuss the potential opportunities, constraints, and challenges confronting the industry. And lastly, the policies and programs of DTI and how we can transform the creative industries to drive and fuel our economic recovery and growth. There is no standard definition for the creative industry. Countries actually have their own set of sectors representing the composition and coverage of their creative industries. For the Philippines, creative industry has been loosely defined. We do not have an official definition as to what the industry constitutes in terms of creative activities. As you can see on the slide, there are three existing international frameworks: the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, or UNESCO, which focuses on the cultural model; the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, focusing on the copyright model; and the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, or UNCTAD, which focuses on the creative model. The UNESCO focuses on cultural practices, activities, and resources that are needed to transform ideas into cultural goods and services. WIPO concentrates on the creation, manufacture, production, broadcast, and distribution of works protected by copyright, while the UNCTAD framework expands the concept of creativity by including activities having a strong artistic component. So any activity heavily reliant, with heavy reliance on intellectual property and for as wide as a market as possible. And while creative industries have different definitions, one common theme shared by these various concepts and approaches is creativity. UNESCO has 6 cultural domains. As you can see on the slide, this would consist of cultural, natural heritage, covering museums, archaeological and historical places, along with performance and celebration, visual arts and crafts, books and press, audiovisual and interactive media, design and creative services, and transversal domains. WIPO covers literary works, musical works, artistic works, photographic, motion picture and computer programs and databases, while UNCTAD, there are 4 classifications consisting of heritage, arts, media, and functional creations. And let me note that in the Philippines, for the copyrighted works, these are specified in the intellectual property code of the country. And in terms of other countries' definition, I am just showing here a sample. Thailand, for example, follows the UNCTAD model by defining 4 major groups and 15 subgroups within the economy. Indonesia's creative economy, meanwhile, covers 16 industries. And let me also mention that in Korea, the government did not adopt a definition of the creative industries. The government views the creative economy as an economy that generates new added value, jobs, and growth engines that prioritizes creativity. They did not set the scope of creative industry to specific industrial fields or scientific technology fields, but instead emphasized the convergence of scientific technology, industry, and culture. Note also that in other countries, they have dedicated agencies in charge of the development of the creative sector. Malaysia has its Sendana, the Cultural Economy Development Agency. Thailand has Creative Economy Agency. Indonesia has Parekraf and Bekraf. Bekraf is their creative agency. Korea has 2, the Center for Creative Economy and Innovation and the Korea Creative Content Agency, or COCA. For the Philippines, our proposed scope based on studies which were carried out by the Philippine Institute for Development Studies combines the 3 frameworks. Primarily, it is also based on the UNCTAD, covering those areas that you can see on the slide. These were also the same as what Toff mentioned earlier. But we are also adding industries that could explicit to the base UNCTAD definition. So we have an UNCTAD Plus, and this would cover culinary arts as well as creative services pertaining specifically to creative education and training services. Now, we're also adding the UNESCO cultural industries such as tourism and sports. And in terms of organizational structure, there are actually many government agencies that are mandated to promote the creative industries. Apart from DTI, and in DTI, we also have other attached agencies such as the Design Center of the Philippines. We also have CITEM. And then we have, for films, we have Film Development Council, the Optical Media Board, MTRCB, MMFF, and then we have DOST with, specifically, we have PSHIRD and PTRI for textiles. We have DepEd as well, DFA, and then NCCA and all its attached agencies. And based on the work that PIDS has done for us, this is the recommended governance framework for the creative industry, the focus of which is to promote coordination and collaboration in order to strengthen the industry, in particular on the creation of a coordinating council that will facilitate coordination and integration among the many diverse industries which were earlier described. And this is also supportive of the Creative Council earlier discussed by Toff. And in here, they have the study identified 2 major two major groups. One is the creative innovation and technology industries, which would work very closely with the creative culture and heritage industries. Three policy clusters were also identified, that is creative people, creative places, and creative business. Moving on, using 2010 data, a study conducted by IPOFIL together with the WIPO showed that the creative industry contributed a total of 689 billion pesos, and this was roughly 6.5% of our GDP. In terms of employment, the industry generated a total of 744,791 workers, which was about 18.5% of the total. And in terms of the estimates that were calculated by PIDS, a total value added of 170 billion pesos, or 6.2% of the total value added in 2016 was generated, and total employment of 390,553 workers, representing about 6% of total employment in the country. But note that it's not easy really to compare the two estimates because of the different data coverage, as well as some differences in calculating the economic contribution. The next slide, this shows us the export performance of Philippine creative industries. And as you can see on the slide, this has been really a fast-growing, high-value contributor to the Philippine economy. Creative services accounted for 84% of creative trade, while creative goods exports have been increasing. As you can see on the slide, the dark blue shaded portions of the bars shown, they would represent our creative services exports. The sky blue ones would be our creative goods exports. And over the years, there's been an increase, but still highly dominated by our creative services exports. Let me also point out that in terms of the creative, creative performance, according to the UNCTAD, we are number one. Let me just go back to that slide. We are number one in creative services exports, number 5 in total services exports in ASEAN. And based on the Global Innovation Index of 2020, we ranked 10th in creative goods exports. This is out of 130 countries. And then the bulk of our creative trade has been due to the strong performance of our creative services sector. And this is mainly attributed to the IT and computer services exports. Creative output is also a sub-pillar in the Global Innovation Index, which tracks the innovation performance of countries. And in 2020, we ranked 57th in creative outputs. And in terms of creative exports as percentage of total trade, as earlier mentioned, the Philippines ranked number 10. At a time when our creative industries have been gaining growth momentum, the pandemic hit us. And as a result, creative sectors have been badly affected. Movie theaters were not allowed to operate, while production activities were restricted. Live events, cultural festivities were prohibited. And though the animation and game development sectors were operating through alternative work arrangements, they suffered productivity and revenue losses due to canceled contracts. And according to the I Lost My Gig.ph, a total of 5,549 projects were lost, and income losses amounting to 269 million, affecting 4,458 visual artists, theater practitioners, musicians, designers, cultural workers, DJs, independent producers, photographers, artisans, filmmakers, freelancers, and other creative workers. One silver lining, though, is the crisis has actually accelerated the rapid digitalization of the economy and reinforced trends, which opened new opportunities for the creative industries. The new technologies have actually lowered entry barriers. Digital formats have made the production of creative content more affordable and enabling creators to expand and invest more easily. These technologies also provided cross-border opportunities with the borderless nature of the internet, making it easier for creatives and businesses to tap into a wider range of customers without the geographic or financial constraints. And these technologies have also improved user experience, providing consumers with increased and wider choices, convenience, and affordability, and thereby improving their overall user experience. So with these new developments, higher value is generated by combining technological expertise and creativity. For instance, in EdTech, this is projected to grow at a compounded annual growth of 16% post-COVID. The animation and gaming industry is expected to reach $124 million US. Video content watched globally during the pandemic also increased by 60%. And meanwhile, virtual reality and augmented reality are expected to reach a value of $95 billion US. With these opportunities, we should be able to harness the strengths of our industries, such as IT BPM, to move into creatives, such as software and game development, EdTech, VidTech, in order to capture the demand created by the paradigm shift in the new normal. Addressing current binding constraints to the growth and development of the industry would be crucial if we are to maximize the opportunities arising from the current shifts in consumer behavior, as well as the digital transformation currently taking place. These constraints, which we need to address, would include the high cost of production and market entry, especially in gaming and film, the fragmented approach to creative skills development and education, lack of sectoral collaboration, structure and governance, lack of data on the industry to guide policymakers, including investors, the low level of investment and investor readiness, underdeveloped local market, and bias in favor of imported content, goods, and services, along with low levels of clustering and low market awareness. The creative industries are an important priority sector of our new industrial policy, which is known as Inclusive Innovation Industrial Strategy, or IQS. This puts innovation or creativity at the front and center of our policies. We fully support the creative industries, and we recognize the tremendous potential to generate value, high-value activities and employment, and contribute significantly to realizing our goal of inclusive and sustainable economic growth and development. Currently, DTI is implementing innovation programs to scale up creative talents. Some game-changing startups and other entrepreneurs, particularly those who are applying new business models and IT tools like artificial intelligence. For example, our programs provide support services such as incubation and acceleration, mentorship, industry matching, along with internationalization activities to expose our creative startups to ecosystems abroad. The pandemic has adversely affected the creative industries, and through these programs, which focus on innovation and the use of new technologies, we hope to help the creative sector in their post-pandemic growth and recovery. Our programs are geared towards providing new skills in terms of providing reskilling and upskilling, considering that we have all these new technologies that are already entering the country, and some companies and industries are also starting to adopt these new technologies. And to prepare our workforce in terms of the adoption of all these new technologies, we have what we call the Philippine Skills Framework program. This is between DTI, TESDA, and we also partnered with Skills Future Singapore. And the main objective is to prepare the Philippine workforce for the fourth industrial revolution technologies and the future economy. And the creative industry is one of the 8 priority sectors for skills development under the Philippine Skills Framework. we will be focusing on the development of skills framework for the digital animation and the software development sector. And in terms of investment promotion, we are providing both fiscal and non-fiscal support for industry development, and of course, including trade and investment promotion. We have the Board of Investment Priorities Plan, covering the following creative industries and knowledge-based services that would be given incentives. And this would include the creative and IT services, animation, software development, game development, engineering design, digital and tech startups, skills training programs related to people, process, tools, technology, and many others, including film and TV productions. Under the CREATE Act, this is the Corporate Recovery and Tax Incentives for Enterprises. This would provide a menu of incentives consisting of income tax holiday, a 5% special corporate income tax, along with enhanced deductions that would allow additional deductions such as depreciation, allowance, labor expense, R&D, training expenses, and many others. So together with the industry, other government agencies, and academe, we are formulating roadmaps for the creative industries. And initially, we are focusing on software development, digital animation, TV, radio, and printed media, toys, characters, and game development. The other agencies that I mentioned earlier are also formulating roadmaps for the various sectors they are currently working with. So the roadmaps would focus on innovation and technology, along with attracting investments and recommending solutions to address obstacles affecting the growth and development of the creative industries. And in the absence of official data on the current state of the creative industries, we are working with the Philippine Statistics Authority in building the Philippine creative industries satellite accounts. This will provide us with a more comprehensive industry statistics to properly and more accurately measure the performance and contribution of the industry. And DTI, of course, also continues to support the Philippine Creative Industries Act, as well as to provide technical support towards the passage of the Philippine Creative Industries Act. The creative sectors, as presented, are among the most dynamic sectors, providing new opportunities for developing countries like us to leapfrog into emerging high-growth areas of the world economy. The creative industries are at the crossroads of the arts, culture, business, and technology. And these activities are intensive in creative skills and can generate income through trade and intellectual property rights. Leveraging on our cultural richness, highly skilled content artists and creators, and their use of new technologies, we can transform the creative industries to drive and fuel our economic recovery and growth. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop here. Maraming salamat po.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Undersecretary, and I hope you'll have time to stick around for our question and answer session later. Before I introduce the next speaker, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Hotel Acura, who's providing our lunch today. I'll be looking forward to that after the show. Which will be just about the time I'll be really hungry, so that should be good. Thank you very much, Hotel Acura. Our next speaker is one of the Philippines' most well-known creative names, international designer Kenneth Cobonpue. Cobonpue, I'm sorry. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thank you to Manila Times, to Mr. Dante Clinkang for inviting me here, to Kong Toff, USEC Aldaba, to my fellow speakers, Ms. Rosemary Ong, Ms. Merlee Jayme, Mr. Ian Monsod, and to Sir Ben Kritz here. Thank you for inviting me. So I'd like to share with you very briefly my journey, my design journey of how I built a brand from my home island of Cebu. So if I may share screen here. Yeah, so here we go. You all see that? Yeah, so this is me before I had hair, growing up in Cebu, and that's my mom. My mom was an interior designer who was based in Cebu, and she built furniture for her clients, literally at the back of our house. She invented a new technique of working with rattan, for which she has an invention patent back in 1984. And CITEM government, the government exhibition arm under the DTI helped support her to exhibit everywhere. And she garnered a lot of awards and accolades. And I spent my childhood just making my own toys, playing around with all the craftsmen who were there really at the back of our house. And I just wanted my childhood to go on forever. So I wanted to take up design. Back then, you know, this is about 35 years ago. It wasn't very popular to be an artist or a designer. You were either a scientist, you were either an engineer, a lawyer, or a doctor. So my father asked me to take up business. So I went to UP Diliman. I took up business for about 2 years, and then I really couldn't take it. I wanted to shift to fine arts, but I failed the entrance examination at the College of Fine Arts because I couldn't draw well enough. And so I took off a year just to learn how to draw, and then went to New York and Europe, where I did further studies. Incidentally, about 10 years ago, this same college invited me to be their commencement speaker. And I think that was probably my best revenge. So when I came back from my studies abroad, I wanted to create really something different, something unique in the world of design. And so I looked at nature, and I saw what makes nature really beautiful is this transparency that you see when you go look at forests and trees, that as you walk along, you see that the forest is dense, but it's actually also very open, very transparent. And when the light comes through it, creates really beautiful patterns. And so I wanted to make furniture like that. And in 1998, I created my first design called the Yin and Yang. Very simple. It's a boxy open frame of using rattan and steel. And here now you see the Yin and Yang on a balcony in Greece. That it's very unique in the sense that when you put it in a balcony, it doesn't really block the entire view. It allows the light to come through. And when you see the shadows on the ground, it creates really beautiful patterns. And when you sit in it, because it's open, actually, it cools you. So it's great for tropical climates. And so I began to see that I was onto something new, and I made the different collections that went through that would go with it. And then I looked at baskets. I was very fascinated, going to the market as a child, looking at all these beautiful weaves and beautiful baskets. And a basket is really fascinating because every member is there to support each other. So I made my next design called the Baloo. Baloo Easy Armchair, named after the bear in Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book. And I saw that when you bent rattan, it made it even stronger. So this was my next design. It's made out of steel, rattan, and abaca rope. My third design was called the Pigal. And this is made out of hand-sculpted steel and abaca rope. And as many as 3,000 knots are used to tie the abaca rope onto that frame. And this is a revolutionary design because it looked like the computer rendering. And even the Korean Museum of Modern Art said it was a perfect example of the new generation of Southeast Asian design. So here's the Pigal. This is in Phuket. And you can see they're very organic. They were inspired by nature, and they look like they really belong to nature. And and soon, when I had all these very unique and different collections then in the world of design, these open, transparent designs, I wanted to do something different, and which was to create my own brand and name. Now, this was unheard of that time because every manufacturer was just making furniture that would go under different names and under different brands abroad. So as far as Philippine design was concerned, we were nameless and we were faceless. And so I wanted to change all that to put my own name. And it was very, very difficult. No one would take it because to them, I was just a plain manufacturer and they were free to take my designs and label it under theirs. And so I lost big contracts. I lost companies who used to buy for us would not buy from me anymore. So for about 2 years, our factory floor was really empty. It was a very difficult time. But I persisted and slowly it paid off. People who never bought from the Philippines started to come to me, and I started to attract these boutique and high-end buyers of Italian furniture. I'm very inspired by culture. Growing up in Cebu, it's an island, of course, and fishing plays an important role in the lives of its people. So I designed collections like these called the Amaya, which is inspired by a fish trap. This is the Amaya dining table now with dimple chairs. And again, you see, because of its open design, it creates very beautiful patterns and shadows on the ground. And then I was inspired by fishnets and started to work with wire and wrap around with fabric to create beautiful patterns. And this is my next design called the Dragnet chair. It's like a gigantic fishnet that's frozen. And I've always been fascinated by people who lived in boats, who work off the boats, and I made this design called the Voyage Bed. And this is a bed which I have to thank for because Hollywood loved this bed. So Brad Pitt bought this bed along with other furniture, and it was used in a lot of music videos like Maroon 5. And when the newspapers here then in the country screamed out headlines that Brad Pitt sits in his bed, and then people began to be interested in what I was doing. You know, it takes Hollywood, I guess, to be known in your own country. So my work is a celebration of craft. And what I try to do is always try to push the boundaries of craft, which is a tradition, and try to make it modern. And this is an example. This chair called the La Luna won an award in New York for craftsmanship in 2001. So this is how it starts. It starts off with a frame of a rattan that's coiled around the mold. Then I take this jig off from the jig. Then I put on wooden legs, and then I put a layer of recycled jute sack, recycled foam, another layer of jute sack, and then the weaving starts. And then after about 48 hours later, the weaving starts to take shape. And the beauty about this pattern, about this design, is that there are two patterns, one coarser one on the outside and a finer one on the inside, just like this. And now the craftsman has to take these two patterns together and deftly stitch them like this. And this is a work that we are very proud of. It can only be really done in our country because of the skill and the meticulousness that's required. So this is La Luna. And this is also a design of mine called the Tilt armchair. It's made out of American walnut. And it's like building a miniature house. It's cut at several angles. There are no screws, no nails used to make this piece. They're all doweled very precisely. And in our workshop of 300 craftsmen, only 2 are qualified to make this chair. This is called the Tilt. And so in my designs, I really try to make it as complex and difficult as possible so the Chinese can't copy them. This is the Tilt. Yeah. And further on, exploring boundaries of design, I looked at knits and looked at sweaters, and I tried to magnify a sweater to create this design called the Cabaret. And it's a plush, it's a very soft, woven, still open, but a woven material. And then, yeah, this design is called the Limbo. This is a Limbo, now made of copper wire. And this is a very different piece also, because now it requires weaving metal. So again, it's craft. It's a celebration of Filipino workmanship. Now, inspiration comes really from everywhere. Even a Coke can became an inspiration for one of my most celebrated designs called the Lola. The Lola won an award in Hong Kong in 2005 for the Asia. It's called Design for Asia Award. It's actually an international award. It's one of the most respected awards here in Asia. It's an international panel, and usually this award is given to industrial giants like Nokia, Hyundai, Samsung, Apple. And this year, one of the awardees was a lowly rattan chair. This is the Lola, now outdoor. So I replaced the materials with aluminum and PE so it can withstand the weather. These are the other pieces in that collection. Again, inspiration comes from everywhere. Blades of grass became the inspiration for the Yoda chair. A bowl of noodles turned into noodle chair. Yeah. And even dim sum steamers became coffee tables. And this is my own version of a sheep called Harry. And this is Harry in its natural habitat. So I'm inspired also by structures like Ferris wheels, bicycle spokes, and this is a design of mine called the Papillon that resembles like a giant hammock. Yeah, so that's a design of mine called Little People, made out of handmade paper and wire. And there's another design of mine called the Bloom. This is also a breakthrough design because it's not a product that you would associate with the Philippines, but it's actually one of our best-selling products today. And the labor that goes into making it is really like making a gown. And when we created this product, it was totally, no one thought that it would succeed because anything upholstered really uses materials that are not from the Philippines. Everything is imported. We don't have a fabric industry. So this uses Italian microfiber. Foam is an expensive component. It's made of steel. But I knew that using Filipino craftsmanship, even using materials that are not ours, would be a winner in the market, just because the Filipino is second to none when it comes to working with his own hands. So this is called the Bloom. This won, several awards. And in fact, when I showed this in Paris, the French Ministry of Tourism wanted to use it in their official brochure to promote Paris because they thought that Cobonpue was French. So this is the Bloom. And this is a leaf chair, which is using the same technique. So I'm inspired again by everything. This is a village lamp, and this is the village lamp hanging over my dining table. This is the peacock chair. This is my interpretation of a traditional Filipino chair. This won an award 3 years ago in Las Vegas at the most important hospitality design show, beating 3,000 other entries. So this is the Yoda, and this is a chair I created during the pandemic. This beats, I think, all the plantitas out there. And this is inspired from the movie Up. This is a balloon chair, and these are inspired actually by our islands, by Coron. And these look like island formations. So I designed other things aside from furniture because I believe that what I've discovered, this aesthetic, applies to everything. And in 2005, I wanted to exhibit the most important shows in design show in the world called Salone in Milan. And when they learned I was Filipino, they wanted to put me up on the third floor, somewhere close to the bathroom at the back. And I knew that I had to impress them with something they've never seen before. So I wanted to build a car, a full-size car made out of bamboo. I wanted to put an electric engine in it, but I didn't have the time. So I sent them the shell. And this is the birth of the Phoenix. This is a full-size car made out of bamboo, rattan, and carbon fiber. And this is the cockpit here. And true enough, they put me out in the front of the building when you come in Milan. This is the team that built it. And this cost a lot of, actually, rave, this was cost a lot of interest from car companies, actually. So I got invited by car companies like Volkswagen, Mercedes-Benz to speak to their designers about incorporating natural materials into transportation. The concept of that you could weave a shell of a car, and which would biodegrade slowly, and you would put it on top of a existing chassis. Instead of building things now, because I think cars really outlive their purpose, and we see so many of them in junkyards, and we just don't know what to do with them. And so it was the subject of it was the cover of a very important book about environmental design called Post-Petroleum Design, published in London and New York. It was in the cover of it was an ad in one of Belgium's biggest banks. Tomorrow is what we make it. Yeah. So I designed, again, inspired by our tricycle, I designed this tricycle of mine, very elegant, luxurious tricycle of mine called the Eclipse. And this has cup holders, it has GPS, it has a cover of the front and back and the sides in case it rains. This is the Eclipse in Paris. I designed also with a bamboo bicycle, inspired by a bull. Yeah. And this is a collaboration of mine, which was, I think, quite it's monumental, I guess, in my career, and also for Disney. This is my collaboration with Star Wars. Disney asked me to design furniture for them, and I told them I don't design furniture without my name on it. And so they agreed that we could co-brand Star Wars and Kenneth Cobonpue. This was a first for them, and it was the first time that the Star Wars franchise, after about 10 years, that they had furniture for adults. And so I worked in it right away, inspired, of course, by something as obvious as TIE Fighter. And this was the Imperial Wings chair. This is the collection. So I'm showing you just parts of the collection. This is our collaboration with Star Wars. And remember Harry, my little sheep? I put a belt on it, made into Chewie, made into Chewbacca. This is my little people lamp, which now sporting lightsabers. And that red one there represents the Jedi that got away. Yeah. So I collaborated many other things also for government. This is the Mactan International Airport, which I worked on with a team from Hong Kong and the local team, and which won an award for the best airport, actually, the World Architectural Awards, beating Singapore and beating other bigger airports. It uses a structure made out of wood. So I have offices, I have distribution around the world. We have our own offices. We have our own showrooms in New York, in the USA, this is in Manila. And we do a lot of projects around the world. This one's in Switzerland. This is in Portugal. I'm just showing you some of the hundreds of examples of hotels that we do. This is in Greece. This is in Costa Rica. So there's a bit of Filipino in all of these beautiful and wonderful resorts. And I exhibit around the world. In many of these shows, I am the lone Filipino exhibiting. This is a Maison Objet in Paris. So I represent also our country in many of these shows abroad. And this is my home. This one show, my home during the pandemic. Yeah, and this is me. Yeah, and that ends my presentation. Thank you very much again for this opportunity to be able to share my work with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think we could probably spend all day looking at your work. But appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Our next speaker is the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer of one of my favorite places, Rosemary Bosch-Ong from Wilcon Depot. Welcome, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, Ben, for that introduction. Yeah, let me share my screen. Good morning, everyone. It is with great honor that I am, I'm speaking to such a great crowd together alongside with, of course, earlier we heard the Honorable Representative Toff de Venecia, and of course, Undersecretary Fita, Aldaba, and of course, my idol, international designer Kenneth Cobonpue. I have very good memories with, very, very, very pleasant memories. I remember pre-COVID, I joined WAF. I was one of those who listened to the presentation of Kenneth when he was shortlisted as one of the finalists of the World Architecture Festival in Amsterdam. And of course, later we'll hear from Ian Monsod and Merlee Jayme. And thank you, Kling, for inviting me. So let me share with you, to start with my presentation, I'd like to share with you who Wilcon Depot is. Our story is very simple. From its humble beginning in 1977, that's where we started. That's when we started in Quezon Avenue, and now Wilcon Depot is the Philippines' leading home improvement and construction supplies company. We have two store formats. We have the depot store that carries a wide array of products, and of course the home essentials, which carries products for DIYers and home must-haves. So let me walk you through how Wilcon contributes to creative economy, not just by providing employment, of course, also in helping economic movement, and how we help improve, refine the homes of every Filipino. So Wilcon carries the most extensive product selection of trusted local and international brands with superior quality, varying from tile, sanitary wares, plumbing, furniture, home interiors, building materials, hardware, electrical products, appliances, and other DIY items. We continue to commit ourselves, as I've mentioned, to help Filipinos build their homes in a comfortable and sustainable way. We now have a 67-strong store network nationwide, in line with our store expansion campaign, which is hashtag Flying High to 100, wherein we aim to expand our footprint to 100 stores. 100 operational stores by 2025, of course, barring any unexpected external factors. Just recently, we have successfully launched our Wilcon online store because we were challenged by this pandemic. We were able to accelerate our digital transformation. Our very own Wilcon shop.wilcon.com site, with our goal to provide bigger and better shopping experience, and of course, options for our customers. They can shop at our online store and then have it delivered or have it picked up. In addition, on our online shopping experience that we provide, they can also conveniently pay, frictionless, using GCash, credit card, debit card, BankNet. This is a complement to our existing shopping alternatives. As I've mentioned, we provide options to our customers. As the market leader, we wanted to be always ahead in innovating industry standards. Every time we go to a new place or a new location, we always set a standard with the quality products, of course, with the excellent experience that we provide our customers. So we offer complete product lines, and we make sure to bring the latest trends, of course, with functionality in mind from around the globe, and making not just trendy products, but of course, quality and products that will satisfy our customers. We pride ourselves with numerous tiles that we carry, from porcelain, we have ceramics, we have a wide, name it, any type of tiles, any size, from different countries, from Italy, from Spain, from Asia, all over the world. So we have vinyl, we have glass, we have stone, we have marble and granite. We house all the exclusive, high-quality premium brands. No, as I mentioned, from Spain and Italy, we have Gardenia Orchidia, we have Versace in our portfolio, and also Resersa. We also have sanitary wares, which is one of our core. If tiles constitute I would say 30% or 30% of our total revenue, sanitary wares would contribute about 1/4 of our total revenue. So our sanitary wares section showcases a broad selection of water closets, lavatories, bathtub, shower enclosures, and other bathroom accessories. We present ideas on our customer and transform those into bathrooms. No, that's why we have bathroom vignettes in our stores that feature exclusive and house brands of Wilcon. We also have dedicated space for home interiors and decoration essentials for those who want to do minor upgrades and even major home renovations. We have tables, chairs, lamps, mirrors, vases, centerpieces, wall paintings, shelvings, and more. We made sure that all our products are organized and properly arranged per category, per zone, per usage, so that our customers can easily find and navigate what they are looking for. Some areas of the store, aside from the vast product selection, Wilcon also is also known for its customer experience, as we provide comfort and convenience in their shopping, as you've seen in the video earlier. Our tile studio also showcases an extensive tile collection, as I've mentioned, because tiles constitute 30% of our total production. Customer can explore Wilcon's high-quality tiles and choose from the impressive array of the top-of-the-line tiles displayed in an organized, clutter-free manner that inspires, of course, and provides hassle-free shopping to our customers. We also have the home living section. It gives a complete look for a shopper's next home project that will surely spark their imagination in creating concepts, no? Or when they're remodeling, let's say, areas of their house like the living room, the dining, the bedroom, the office space, especially now that everybody's like centered in the home. So we provide spaces for our office, we provide spaces for our study room. The showroom features an extensive line of products, including furniture, houseware, home interior, and decorations. We also have show flats, which are condo living setups to give design inspirations to our shoppers. And aside from that, our customers can also personalize and upgrade their outdoor spaces through the outdoor living section. And we all know that with this pandemic, alfresco inspired spaces is now the thing. No, it displays various setups of outdoor lifestyles such as grills, gardening, essentials, planters, and all this, and other outdoor recreation. So in Wilcon, you also find what we call the Design Hub. So this service allows our customers to create their design 3D layout. You come to Wilcon with an idea in mind, so we put them in 3D perspective, we put them into reality. So that computer-aided device would also give you a cost estimate. You just drag and drop the products that you want in the design layout, and it will give you the product list and, of course, the cost estimate made possible in our Design Hub. So you will be assisted by our trained in-house designers that will help you envision your dreams, the dream design that you have in mind, and put it in reality through the 3D design. So we also have the ABCDE launch, meant to be a haven for industry professionals. So we put these comfortable lounges so that architects, builders, contractors, designers, and engineers, together with their clients, they will conceptualize and create the ideal projects. So we have a library of different catalogs of all the products that we carry that will help them in their design inspiration. And aside from that, basically that's what Wilcon is. And that's what Wilcon is all about, making every Filipino home owner's dream come true or come to life. So through the years, it is our commitment to provide every homeowner and builder a better and more convenient shopping experience with the products and the service that we offer. We revolutionize the home building landscape in the Philippines significantly and establish itself as the most preferred shopping destination to industry professionals, to designers, because we know that we are all part of one ecosystem and we're all here to create that creative economy. So, and we are grateful for the trust and of course the support of the Filipinos. So to know more and to know more about Wilcon Depot, you can log on to our website, www.wilcon.com.ph. We have an online shop, shop.wilcon.com.ph. You can also reach us to Facebook and Instagram at wilcondepot.ph. And also you can subscribe and connect with our Viber community, Wilcon Depot PH. We have a YouTube channel, Wilcon TV, and LinkedIn Wilcon Depot Incorporated. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Have a great day.
Well, thank you. And as I told you earlier, it's good to see you again. And I should probably visit one of your stores and do something about my bathroom. We're going to switch gears now a little bit and welcome Merlee Jayme, who is the Chief Creative Officer for Dentsu International in the Asia Pacific region. Welcome.
Hello, good morning to everyone. Thank you to Mr. Dante Clink Ang and to you, Ben Kritz, for inviting me today, and to all the prestigious speakers here. That makes me so humble. There is nothing close to my heart than speaking about Filipino creativity. I've been 30 years as a creative now, and you can just probably guess my age. But, let me bring you now to my world of advertising. Let me just share my screen. As you know, advertising is very cutthroat kind of industry. So here I speak about Filipino creativity advances. So it is true that through the years, Filipino values are at the forefront of our ads. You see, they say we understand the culture of a country through its advertising. And we've seen this through the years, we show our love for family, we have love for country, for our religion, for our behaviors, cultural behaviors, like we don't even have English translation for malasakit, maalahanin, kusang loob, utang na loob, mapagkumbaba. Maybe magpagkumbaba is humility, respect for elders, generosity, and many more. I mean, this would set us apart from any other advertising in the world. I've been judging for years now, and only us would probably show pictures of this positivity like anything. And in the quest to cut through messaging and to probably, scratch the surface of being the world, at some point we had some identity crisis in advertising. We were getting into an American lifestyle stories. We found ourselves, let's say, doing British wit. We also found ourselves putting in Thai humor, because the Thais are very good in exaggeration and really weird humor. I mean, we felt like we wanted to tap into that as well. But thankfully, as years went along, we found ourselves getting back to what we truly love. We wanted to show our love for music, our love for drama, tearjerkers, or even romance, as you can see here. I don't know about you, but I'm still a sucker for watching this every single Valentine's. I would wait for kilig moments, kilig stories from Jollibee and touching stories from McDonald's. And this one would really be etched in our memory. However, to catapult ourselves, our creativity to the world, we discovered something about us that no one in the world is really, really good at, It is really problem solution. It is something to do about looking for solution for every single problem. And I guess because we grew up in a world where our country is poor, and I would be very, very vocal about this when I do talks abroad. I would go when you don't have anything, you look for something. And when you have calamities 25 times, we have typhoons 25 times in a year. When you have that, you think of something. And this is something innate among Filipinos. And we're always on the lookout how we can improve our lives, how we can solve problems in our country. And this is the one word that push us out there in a global space. I've seen the work of Mr. Kenneth here. I mean, I go like, oh my God, looking at baskets, and that is so us. Resourcefulness, what we have, the little we have is what pushes us to be, creative. They say resourcefulness is defined as the ability and creativity to cope with difficulties when we're very rich with difficulties, especially the pandemic now, that is a blank canvas to a creative. What can we do? What can we create? So something sometimes it excites us, more than ever. And when we brainstorm, it's no longer what if, it's more, kung ganito, kung we use this, kung lagi may kung, it's never like, hindi pwede yan. We hate create, well, you don't belong to the creative community when you're hindi pwede yan, like everything is impossible. We look for the possibilities all the time. Nothing stops us from creating, not a single barrier. And if I may say so, being now working globally last year and now in APAC and being now 30 years, as I've said, if there's one barrier to our country and making out really big in the world is budget. I have no idea. The demand keeps on growing for creativity. The push is there. Budget keeps on getting smaller from our clients, from brands and everything else. But that doesn't stop us from creating. We keep on pushing. That's just the creative spirit that we have. So let me show you some examples. Let me just show you examples from other agencies first, not from my network, but I truly love this. Let's say a brand like Boysen, they created Knocks Out, a paint that would purify air. So what did the agency do? These creatives would think of everything. They painted EDSA, beautiful paintings, using this paint. So as you put the sign on EDSA, like this one would represent the lungs, beautiful lungs, you are actually purifying the air using Boysen. There were also past efforts of another agency using Pepsi, for example, and using bleach. And they provided litter of light. There's lighting up villages where there is no electricity. And we still have those villages until now. So these are of without budget kind of, but the bigness of the ideas have reached other countries. It was just this year when, earlier on, Congressman Toff was saying about 2030. 2030 is also the year for supposedly zero plastics in the world, but that will not push through. Why? Because with that pandemic, we have tripled and, the use of plastic for delivery, for food, for protection with our PPE gears and everything else. So this year, why not start with a shampoo bottle? I remember this, this was just this year. The shampoo, the bottle is actually one and the same. So this was done just this year. Now let me go through what we've actually done in our agency, and it gives me nostalgia. For example, I remember there were cities where fire trucks, every March is the fire prevention month, there were fire trucks who cannot go through narrow streets. So when there's something burning there, there's a fire, it takes the whole part of the city that gets burned down because the fire truck couldn't get through. And, this is also usually the part where they're really poor families. So you can't afford 2,500 fire extinguishers, can you? So what we did was we came up with pocket fire extinguishers in a sachet. This was just born out of our pantry. It is made up of vinegar. So what we did was we looked through YouTube and we could find all these volcano experiments, science experiments by grade schoolers. And we tried to concoct, if we break off a tube inside, and as you tear off the piece up there in the upper right corner, and it spurts out our concoction, and it is very good even with kitchen fires. How much does it cost? 50 pesos. And, we didn't get a lot of order in the Philippines, but we did got an order of 10,000 sachets in Belgium. The problem is transporting it. So again, this is our problem when we have a lot of creativity that the world would probably love. There's a lot of difficulties as well to push it. Gabby, for example, at the height of sexual harassment with the hashtag #MeToo, we were saying, what is the problem of the women in the Philippines? You don't know what to do. First, you're not educated of what is sexual harassment anyways. So the second one is, if I'm harassed, what do I do next? Where do I report? Do I even want to report? I'll be judged as a person. So we created a friend who will never judge you, but will educate you what it is. Type in what happened to you. It will tell you exactly if it's harassment or not. And if it is, it pushes you to tell your story. And if you tell your story, it will you can put it in a form. You fill it up, and eventually it is your choice. If you send it, it is actually a direct report to Gabriela. So things like this is something that we can do in the office pretty fast, and thinking of solutions right away when there are problems. And of course, this catapulted us in the world. This was a project of ours when we wanted to show how smart our client was helping out schools. But this was in a different way. Every single student would carry 22 books on their backs and really walk like around 5 kilometers. I would run that in a semi-marathon, but not walk every day, going to school. Now, what we did was there are a lot of, sabi nga nila, may pera sa basura. We believe that there are a lot of excess SIM cards in our office because we do a lot of ads for Smart. And we tried decoding it and putting textbooks there. And it became Smart textbooks, and eventually this would be also used in orphanages. We develop more subjects like art. It's not just your textbooks like for languages. And then soon after, other countries were asking us. We patented this. Smart let the agency patent it so we can expand to different countries. We taught how to be coding it. They had so much, they were showing us how they would do it in a very complicated manner, and we showed them how it's very, very simply done back in our office. So these are the little things. Oh, we're also simple because we come from a very simple thinking, like this is creative, this is what you want to solve, not so many complications along the way. And this is Ray Inamoto. He's the one who made Smart Textbooks win Grand Prix. It's the first Grand Prix winner from Cannes Lions for the country. And I wanted to know how he found our ideas good.
Hi, I'm Ray Inamoto, Chief Creative Officer of AKQA. The Grand Prix winner, as I said earlier, we didn't know which country it was from. And what we loved about this is just the simplicity of the idea. And it's only possible in this category. It wouldn't be possible in obviously in other categories. But I think in many ways it hit the criteria for me. And the criteria, as I was judging, I was thinking in my head, what should be the things that we should talk about, or we should think about. And it came down to 3 things: is it connected? Is it portable? Is it pervasive? And it hits all those points.
So I also remember Congressman Toff showed this. I knew who was behind this. Sometimes resourcefulness is not just about the things you will use for your idea or inspire your idea. Sometimes it's the use of your time. Budget, my friend Budget Tan, was also in advertising while creating campaigns. On the side, he would push his passions, and that would be writing and creating these comic books called Trece. And imagine, the time in advertising, we have long hours. Believe me, I was an OT queen for the longest time. I would come home really in the morning just to finish a lot of campaigns. So usage of time as well. We creatives can just juggle like that. Switch off, switch on. So if we do campaigns, we can also do something else. I've written a book while I'm being creative as well in the advertising field. So he wrote this, and now it's on Netflix. So again, the creativity out there is what we have is something that is truly, truly world class. If ever, that was also mentioned earlier, it wasn't done here, I would have wished training and craftsmanship would be pushed to Filipino creatives as well. There would be more opportunities because polishing it, if you look at all the work in the world, the way craftsmanship is done is of the highest level. We have to be exposed to that so we can improve our craft. And here, I love this. Isa Mijeno is a friend of mine, and back in 2015, she already invented the salt lamp. It's simply like it runs on electrochemical LED lamp with salt water as electrolytes. Now, during that time, she even presented it to Barack Obama when the president was here visiting. And it was so advanced that it was not just lighting up fishing villages. It has a port where mobile phones can be charged. 2015. Fast forward to today. I was just judging in Cannes Lions like last month. And one of the winners was called Waterlight. Exactly the same. It's a lamp for fishing villages in Argentina, and it's running with salt water. I mean, we were advanced. We were world-class in thinking, maybe a little bit on craftsmanship because the Waterlight had a little bit more of design with it, but the thinking, the innovation was way more advanced, so early. We were early in the game. So what I'm saying here is our ideas as Filipinos have truly reached global levels. We have world-class thinking. We would definitely be up there at par with our other countries, our other creatives in other countries. It's big world-class ideas. However, if I would have one wish, it really needs big rewards as well. What makes me sad is in my world, money or the budget would even go to media placements more than the thinkers or the doers. We are on the factory floor. I think of ideas 24/7. Even if I'm sleeping, I have a pad on beside my bed. When I wake up, I have 10 taglines to think of. These are people who never stop thinking. We are workers who are totally on, always on, just like your Wi-Fi. But the way it is rewarded, it's not the same. How I would wish we would be valued and rewarded and be recognized and appreciated more. So that's where I'm really thinking where creativity should be. And really, we have to do this. It's never too late because our resourcefulness, our creativity will never leave us as Filipinos. And I just want to leave this and end my talk with saying Filipino creativity is the currency of the future. We better believe that. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. That's an aspect of creativity I think a lot of people don't think about, is how to market and advertise it. Okay, our final speaker for today, we're going to move on to the music world. Would we please welcome Mr. Ian Monsod, who is the Managing Director of Warner Music Philippines.
Thanks, Ben. Hi, everyone. Thank you to Dante Klink Ang for inviting me here, to Representative Toff de Venecia, Yusek Aldaba, my esteemed co-panelists Kenneth Cobonpue, Rosemary Bosch-Ong, Merlee Cruz. I am truly humbled to be even part of this talk. I know we're running short on time. So basically what I'll do is I'll cut the scope of my talk just a bit. What I'll do is I guess give at least a context of the music industry globally and locally, just so you know what's going on and the challenges of an artist, and maybe some thoughts about harnessing the creativity of the Filipino in that aspect. No, and I'll share a few slides, but prior to that, just so everyone knows, also context of Warner Music Philippines. In the music industry, there are three majors or global major music labels: Universal, Sony, and Warner. So I take care of Warner here in the Philippines. Let me share my slides. Give me a sec. Okay. Start off with this. Just because here are some sort of quotable quotes I have in the music industry, but I'll concentrate on one, which is, music is one of the few endeavors that unites us, whatever our backgrounds or interests. Because no matter what, who does not like music, right? It's a universal thing that we all like all together. I'd like to give a little context on the global music industry. the way music is made and heard is continuously being disrupted, and the industry is constantly evolving. I'm showing you this kind of complicated graph because this shows the different formats that the music industry has gone through since maybe the 1970s, right? So this represents the U.S. revenue of different formats. So if you look at the dark blue, that's vinyl and long-playing albums. The lighter blue is cassettes, and you see the value coming in sort of the late 70s and going up towards the 90s. And then this big orange part is CDs, probably the most profitable time of the music industry ever, peaking in 1998. Then you see in purple sort of the download era, the iTunes and download era. I mean, stealing value away from the value proposition of a CD, and basically also kind of triggering the piracy era. And then in the green below, this is when streaming started, starting in 2005, but building up. And now streaming is what's driving value in the music industry today. This next slide shows it in a bit more of a summary, where you see the yellow is the value brought about by streaming. Now, I think globally, we're at a $21.6 billion industry. We've sort of recovered from the download and piracy era. And I think we've surpassed 2004 revenue levels. So streaming is still driving growth, and it's been resilient through the pandemic. And I'm just talking about recorded music. So the things that you hear in Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube Music, etc., that has survived and has been resilient through the pandemic. This next slide is a bit academic, but I just wanted to illustrate how the music value system has transformed. Whereas before, everything was pretty much an analog procedure, studio production. When you create content, it's studio production. You have an A&R or an artist and repertoire person choosing which to release. So the amplification processes were done through traditional channels like TV, newspapers, out of home. And delivery of the music product was by physical manufacturing, distribution, retail, and maybe even TV and broadcast. And it's consumed through a playback device like a record player, or a cassette player, CD, etc., etc. That has transformed. So everything in green is what's been super disrupted by technology. Content creation is now, you can do everything at home. Pretty much with a powerful computer, you can make music. You don't need expensive studios. In terms of amplification, marketing, and promo, it's all, at this point, especially during the pandemic, through digital channels, through Spotify, Facebook, YouTube, etc. And the way it's delivered to you is through digital platforms like Spotify, and you consume it with your phone. So basically, it really upended the whole music industry. And the music industry has a continuous history of being disrupted by different formats. I'll touch a little bit on the local industry as well. What I'm showing you here is consumption. And I use this sort of proxy data as it's a top 200 of Spotify over from December 2016 to June 2021. The orange signifies the portion of international listening. The blue is domestic, and the gray, it says regional, but that's actually, and I'll point this out, it's actually K-pop. So let me show you. Pretty much, the Philippines has historically been a predominantly foreign listening audience. We like listening to our US and UK releases, UK and US artists. In 2016, 20%. Oh, it's actually more like 10%. Was domestic consumption. And through the years, it actually improved and peaked here at about March 2019 at 48%. 48% of the top 200 was consumption of domestic tracks. right? And actually after that, it started falling off a bit. And right now it stands at, we're at 31% domestic consumption versus 62 international and 7% K-pop. But I'd like to point out, sometime in October 2020, here, if you see where I'm pointing, K-pop momentarily surpassed domestic consumption. I think this is the time that Blackpink released an album and BTS as well. And 9 of the top 10 was either Blackpink or BTS. And it surpassed. It's incredible what the K-pop culture is doing. I think the challenge for artists in the music industry is it's sort of a double-edged sword because of technology being democratizing production, distribution, marketing, etc., etc. It's never been so easy for an artist to reach an audience. I can make a song now, put it up on YouTube, and you can listen to it, and I've reached you, right? But because any artist can do it, every artist can do it. So all of a sudden, you've got an infinite amount of content of choice that a specific audience has to choose from, and the challenge now is how to rise above that noise, right? Rise above that clutter. So that is a sort of unique challenge now for musicians. Sorry, I'll stop sharing now. And I'll just talk through the rest of what I need to say now. Basically, the challenge also, I guess, specifically to the pandemic, is that the loss of live performances has greatly affected musicians. In the economics of a musician, basically, the biggest revenue stream of a musician is live gigs. That's it around the world. Even for major musicians, that's the case right now. In the CD area, when CDs were very profitable and driving growth of the music industry, royalties from CDs was the biggest revenue stream, and then live revenue, etc., etc. Now it has changed. So basically, live touring or live gigs are what drives the most revenue for an artist, and then other things like streaming royalties from Spotify, etc., YouTube, or brand partnerships or endorsements or sync when an artist's music is put on a TV show or an ad. Those are the different revenue streams. But basically, some of these revenue streams are only available to those who are established. Like if you're not an established artist, it's harder for you to close a sync deal, a brand partnership, etc., etc. So that puts in another dimension of difficulty for artists or musicians who are starting out or developing. Losing the live gigs was a big hit to a lot of artists. Now, maybe I'll go straight to sort of my thoughts on harnessing talent. I think in the short term, maybe to help the songwriters and singers, they are now in some kind of pandemic isolation. So what they are forced to do is really just keep on creating and connecting. Now, some definitely have had to do alternative work or abandon music totally as a matter of practicality. But those who have stuck to it, they have no choice but to create and connect. Basically, hone their skills, push the envelope with what they're creating, take risks, and build an online audience, because that's only where it is at this point. That's the only audience you can actually build right now, an online audience, and use social media to keep the fans engaged. Basically, how we can help. I love what Toff is doing with the Creative Industries Act, because that does sort of help subsidize and encourage creativity. But right now, I think as a matter of practicality, a lot of artists need cash. And maybe one of the short-term things we can do really is support them in these endeavors. Hire performers to do stuff in your corporate events or parties. Support output. In Warner, we're actually doubling the number of releases that we're financing from artists, just to help in that regard. No? In the long term, though, that's the more exciting part. It's harnessing the Filipino creativity in the music arena. I think in the long term, it's all about conquering the international arena. And what I like to make reference to always is Korea, because the Korean example, building their Hallyu, which is the Korean wave, or represented by their fan clubs. They have fan clubs in over 100 countries with over 100 million members. And this is, it's a long 20-year journey, but it's basically about government backing up the exporting of pop culture in many different areas. So movies, music, drama, TV dramas, cuisine, makeup, online games. In the music industry, it was about creating an identity and blending sort of Western influence with their home influences. And you see the effects today, as I pointed out earlier, where K-pop consumption momentarily surpassed even our domestic consumption. So it's really about developing our own global music identity. And it may not take the form similar to K-pop, but it's something that we need to develop ourselves, and we have to evolve. What are the challenges of this? I'll put it in 3 buckets. Content, curation, and amplification. The challenge in content is, when we look at content, Philippine content and music, when you look at talent, I think we have the very best in the world. I think we all know and appreciate that. International performers who have been awarded, like Lea Salonga, etc., really prove that point. We're the very best in the world. We can be the very best in the world. But I think we're known more internationally for performance, not for content, not for songs that we create, but for performances. And I think that's the gap we have to fill now. In terms of songwriting, content and songwriting, I think we're getting there. We have a more traditional approach generally. Leading with lyrics and melody. Not a bad thing. I think it could be part of what identifies us. But, I had this opportunity to go to Sweden and look at the way they produce. And it's a very different process altogether. They use a sort of track and hook system where they have a top liner or someone who just makes nice melodies and nice lyrics. And it's a hook like an advertisement hook. And basically, a song is a bunch of hooks put together, so it's ear candy, and that's the process. And a lot of hit songs in Western culture have average about 7 songwriters because of this process. So it's something that we could also maybe adopt or integrate into what we're doing. But I think we're getting there. I think I see movements in the industry that are going that direction. In terms of production. Mixing, sound engineering, etc. I think to compete abroad, of course, we have to get ourselves to international standards, and I think we're getting there. Technology has democratized this process, has democratized production, and it's not as much a matter of talent, but I think more of resources, both time resource and cash resource. I think the amount of time a producer spends honing or producing a track outside is much more than that we do and can afford over here. So that's something that we do have to address. In terms of curating releases, here's the challenge. If you're looking at the international arena, there are certain decisions you have to make. When you make an English song, you're now competing with a US artist for attention, and have a lower probability of charting success here in the Philippines, because usually it's Tagalog songs that chart well here in the Philippines. When you make a song in Tagalog, it has a higher likelihood of charting here in the Philippines, but you're virtually eliminating its chances in the international market. Right? So how do you go about choosing what songs to curate? Choosing a song for an audience, you have to know the audience, you have to know the target, you have to decide on who the target is and know them. And music is sort of the art of eliciting emotion in listeners. So how do we connect with them and how do we have an effect? And lastly, in terms of marketing, it's not. I think it's not only about targeting the diaspora, but building new audiences around that. Music is about connection, and you have to gain that attention, and you have to choose the audiences that you target. If I may, last point, I think I'm highlighting one project that we do. It's called GloPM, or Global OPM, and basically it's celebrating Filipino artistry through collaborations with Filipinos in and out of the Philippines. So we're kind of building on Filipino pride, not only for the product, but even those who are creating the product. Filipinos are all over the place, and we can blend Filipino and Western influences with this process. So what we're doing is we're putting together artists and producers from in and out of the country. So for example, we have our a local town, he's Quest, who's a hip hop, R&B, and rap artist. We're making him collaborate with Kuya Productions in Canada, and they've produced stuff for Christina Aguilera and Akon. We have an indie pop duo called Lian and Nara, who we're putting together with August Rigo, a Filipino producer in Canada who's done stuff for Justin Bieber and BTS and Chris Brown. And we have an upstart duo from the Visayas called Rion, who won the Philpop Songwriting Contest last year. And we're hooking them up with Xerxes Bakker in Netherlands, who's done stuff for Maroon 5 and Snoop Dogg. And there are others in the pipeline. And I guess by doing this, we create a product. It may not be the K-pop hit we want right at the start, but one, it does a few things. One, it refines our content. It ups our game. It makes us more used to the world-class quality. It provides knowledge transfer to our artists and producers, because these producers, they get Philippine culture and they know their global audience as well. So it's that whole Korean thing where you kind of blend Western influence and your home influence. And that's what a hit's all about, by the way. The anatomy of a hit is having something familiar and having something new. And that's what we're trying to go for. Also, curation insight. Since we tap these producers who have a sense of what works in their markets, it brings us closer to what we're trying to do. And it builds a knowledge base, even on the amplification side and the marketing side, where we build a knowledge base of what works after seeing what we can do. Right. So even K-pop started there. They started with American producers producing their songs. I think this is one of the things we can do to contribute to harnessing the Filipino creativity in the music industry for the long term. So I think I'll end there. Thanks.
Thank you, Ian. I appreciate that presentation, and I appreciate all the panelists for staying this long. But if you don't mind staying just a little bit longer for some Q&A, but if we can maybe prioritize Congressman De Venecia, who has a committee meeting in a few minutes. Kong Toff, are you still around? Do you mind just asking just a couple of questions real quick before you prepare for that committee meeting this afternoon? Just regarding your work on the creative industries, and
all right, could you try speaking?
All right, sorry. As I was saying, I know you have a committee meeting in a few minutes, so I'd like to ask you first, so we can let you go. But I just wanted to touch on your vision for the creative industries, because you're the one really steering this whole movement. When you say that you want the Philippines to be the leading creative economy in ASEAN in 2030, what is the beef to that story? I mean, in terms of jobs, in terms of maybe GDP. I mean, what does the vision look like if we're number one?
Okay, so just to clarify that, I think there's hello? All right.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so just to clarify, that was a goal that was set by the Creative Economy Council of the Philippines,
right? Which
was headed by Paolo Mercado, who was basically sort of like our North Star for everything that we've been doing. I am an echo chamber of Paolo Mercado and all the work that they've done in the past decade or so. but yeah, I mean, I think we have all of the tools and all of the potential and the building blocks to be able to be the #1 creative economy in the ASEAN by 2030. I mean, USEC Fita shared some very important data in her presentation. We are leading the ASEAN in terms of the export of our creative services, and understandably so. We are a service-oriented nation, but the challenge really is how do we improve the export of our creative goods? And in all of our committee hearings that we've had in the past year and a half, with the furniture sector, for example, of which Kenneth was there, with the fashion sector, we've basically zeroed in on all those reasons as to why we're lagging behind. In terms of creative goods exports, you have very, very expensive logistics in the country, in which shipping your piece of furniture or your fashion design is probably twice the cost of the actual good being sold. We have a weak manufacturing base due to a host of reasons, which hopefully once this bill is enacted into law, there will be a forum in which all these creatives, even outside of all the hearings we've been having in Congress, and we're very grateful to Speaker Lord Alan Velasco to have really supported this advocacy from day one of his speakership. To be able to identify all these bottlenecks and pain points across the value chains of each of these creative sectors, and then provide the necessary interventions legislatively to be able to address each one. With your sector, Clink, when we met with you guys, I mean, we heard about like the expensive cost of paper,
Right.
print your newspapers, your books. It adds to the costs vis-a-vis what is the spending capacity of the reader to be able to spend on newspapers or books or even magazines. So I do remember before getting into politics, I was working in publishing, and I was there during its heyday, but soon after I left, all these magazine titles started to close one by one.
Right.
And I couldn't help but wonder, had there been closer synergy between the creative industries and government to be able to address all these issues, might we have been able to prevent the seeming collapse of the magazine industry in the country? And so it's a lofty goal. It's very ambitious, but it's very, very realizable. It's something that we can totally achieve. We just have to definitely lay the foundation for the development of this sector. And I think the bill and its passage will be that sort of foundational, governance framework to be able to allow these industries to scale the same way that South Korea has been able to do for their content industries, which interestingly enough happened all the way back in 1997. When Kim Dae-jung shifted their economic strategy towards developing their own content industries because they had lost their main economic driver, which was cheap manufacturing. And so that was 1997, wake of Asian financial crisis, a time of great challenge for the country and for the world, really. And here we are again in the middle of pandemic. We are in a time of great uncertainty, and this is the time really to be able to pivot towards this new development agenda, which, as you said, Fita shared earlier, is part of Industry 4.0.
Right. Well, last question. I know you have to go. Your staff has been signaling to me, but how difficult has it been to push this through Congress, given that, we have, of course, all the other priorities that were presented to us unexpectedly by the pandemic? What does it take, in other words, to pass this bill? What do you need from us, from the public, and maybe from the media like Manila Times? And then your final words for the audience.
Thank you. Well, we need the creative stakeholders to embrace this policy proposal, this piece of legislation. I mean, there's only really so much that government can do. This is a consequence and an outcome of the more than 100 maybe consultations and Zoom meetings that we've had in the last year and a half. And it was something that thankfully was supported by the Arts and Culture and Creative Industries bloc, which is 55, but as of yesterday is now at 58. We have 3 new members in the group to represent Baguio, Cebu, and Iloilo and Ilocos Norte. But basically, yeah, we need the creative stakeholders to embrace the bill, to lobby for it, to take to social media, to really advocate for its passage. We need them to engage with policymakers, both in the lower house and also in the Senate. Because once policymakers see how big the sector really is, in fact, Sec Mon Lopez in his keynote in Creative Futures 3 weeks ago said that there are about 4.8 million workers in this industry alone. That's huge. That's sizable. That's even higher than my estimate, because with 2% of the population being freelancers, so that's around 3.6 million, and then 740,000 workers or employees in creative firms, that's about 4.3 to 4.4 million. But SecMon was saying it's 4.8, and I'm sure both our estimates are still very much underestimated or undervalued. I'm sure it's even greater now. And so it's a significant economic actor, the creative industries, and the sooner everybody comes together and recognizes their value and worth and realizes that, you know, all these problems that they've been faced with for decades, it doesn't have to be that way. There's this sort of concept of struggle and hardship that the Filipino creative has internalized all these years. There's this sort of acceptance that, you know, to be a creative in this country means to prepare yourself for a life of struggle and, you know, fighting against all odds just to be able to carry out your passions. But it doesn't have to be that way. You know, the only way really for our creative economy to accelerate is to work side by side with government, the way South Korea has been able to do all the way back in 1997, to be able to scale and help us achieve our full potential. And again, going back to that dream of 2030 of the Philippines being the #1 creative economy, it's totally doable, but we need to start now. People have been asking, is this creative bill the silver bullet? No, not really. It's just it's a foundational piece of legislation in which we can build with more policies moving forward. And I think it's also very important that not only government recognizes each of these creative industries. We've identified as many as 35 to 50 already. But for the creative industries to realize the value of each other as well. Because, you know, they've been operating mostly in silos. There are a lot of commonalities and shared policy concerns that they didn't realize they have. Like, for example, we realized with our hearings on fashion and gastronomy, of which the third and final hearing in gastronomy will be later this afternoon, is that both have downward linkages towards agro production. Basically, the crops that are being cultivated are essentially what are transformed into textiles. And we have opportunities in mulberry and cotton and silk in Abaca that aren't necessarily being harnessed because the government agency in charge of it, Fita, or the Fiber Development Authority, doesn't get enough resources and budget from the government vis-a-vis all of those other more political crops in the Department of Agriculture. And then, of course, within gastronomy, there are at least 83 crops that were already identified in the Arc of Taste by the Slow Food Movement, of which one of them was adlai. And of course, we're now familiar with adlai because of then USEC now Secretary of Tourism, Berna Romulo Puyat, who really worked with the gastronomes and all of the marketing arms of the state to be able to make Adlai into what it is now. But believe it or not, there are 82 other Adlais in which we can possibly be able to promote that, scale it, and provide better livelihood to our farmers. And so, and even we realized also very recently that the non-fungible token, which is like a blockchain kind of evolution of digital assets in the creative economy, which has really been growing for the visual arts sector, is now apparently also in the fashion industry. There's now digital fashion. And so it's very interesting what shared commonalities these creative industries have. And I was watching an esports panel last night, which is part of the Creative Futures Conference in Saitam. And basically they were saying that there's really an opportunity to be able to brand and elevate our esports stakeholders by creating closer linkages between them and the design sector to be able to craft a look that is more sort of unique and could actually compare to, what K-pop and what K-pop has been able to do visually, aesthetically for their musicians, for their stakeholders. Trike was saying that there's an opportunity to be able to work with various creative industries to be able to upscale and elevate the esports and gaming sector, which is part of the creative economy. So again, there are so many linkages. So it's not just about government to creative industries, but it's creative industries among themselves. There is a lack of awareness still and synergy. And when the creative industries come together, they're really more exciting collaborations that can come out. There is some kind of development of their productivity. And yeah, it goes back to what Secmon said. Our biggest comparative advantage is really our creative skills and our creative value add. It's sort of what was shared earlier also that, creative industries or Filipino creativity is the currency of the future. And I really believe that. I mean, take away everything, but the Filipino will always have that innate creativity. And I think it's time that we started investing in our God-given talents and what we have. So there.
Thank you, Kong Toff. Well, since Kong Toff quoted Merlee about creativity being the currency of the future, maybe if I can ask Merlee and Kenneth on the aspect of jobs. Well, for Merlee, you mentioned that the advertising industry is in distress. You said creatives are increasing, but budgets are decreasing. I was wondering how you think government can intervene in helping the industry, and maybe for again on the aspects of jobs, Mr. Cobonpue, I was wondering how your experience in forming your company, how it has led to generating jobs in Cebu. Maybe Merlee first.
Okay, to your question, thank you for that. I think there are a lot of things happening today. First is Filipinos' creativity will never diminish, okay? We are really inborn creative people. I think when it comes to inspiring and pushing, this is the actual state of creativity in advertising. Most of them are leaving the industry. The young ones would look for another way to show their creativity. But there's nothing wrong with that because advertising has turned into a digital business. So in this digital business, everybody's creative. You can do your own content. Everybody who has more followers than I do, you can actually create anything in TikTok or any other channel. But the thing is, when you want to preserve this kind of talent, pushing inventions, innovations, and thinking of brand building, that's where I wanted more of For example, what we've done for the Makati fire station or this pocket fire station, we don't know where to go, where we could ask for help with the government. We did try TESDA for that. We patented these ideas, but we can't bring it up to a level where I could really answer Belgium's call of 10,000 sachets. This is where we really need help. I saw a lot of charts earlier about the industries of creative where the governments, I would really push. I was already texting the 4A's industry of advertising. We have to get and make it bigger because this is where we are. Our ideas can solve the problems of this country. Suddenly we should change the fact that advertising is just to push the next president. We're not after just building up stories about people. For me, authenticity is number one. I don't do any ads that I don't believe in. But pushing this country forward, like the salt lamp of Isa, I had long talks with her. It's all about budget. 2015, and now Argentina is claiming it. We were ahead. But the thing is, if we found these really good ideas that can push the country forward, if only we have an office where we could ask help, to push it, to sponsor it, for brands to build it, that would be truly a big help because all creatives would want their work, like Mr. Cobonpue here, being hailed in the rest of the world.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, definitely. I think we have to distinguish, there's two kinds of design, right? As a service, and one is as a product, and that's manufacturing, from which I belong. So if you can imagine, Merlee was talking about the salt lamp. It's one thing, of course, to design it and to sell the idea to another manufacturer. And it's a different thing. It's a better thing when we can manufacture it here ourselves because then it generates employment. And so when we design something that's unique, it's innovative, we can manufacture it here. And that should be our goal. But we've done all of that. We've accomplished a lot, actually, but with little or no government support. And we need support, by the way, in terms of course, financing and also intellectual property, which is very important. Intellectual property rights and enforcement of existing regulations. Just right before this meeting, I was because we found out that rattan poles are now being illegally smuggled. Raw rattan poles are smuggled to China. It's illegal to export rattan and wood. In its raw form, and they're being they're moving out of Mindanao to China, and so we've been tackling this for a long time. We just don't know where to go because there's too many agencies involved, and so this is the kind of support that we will need from government.
Thanks. So very, very interesting. Ben, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I have kind of a broad question, and I'll address this to Undersecretary Fita and Mr. Monsod first. But if everyone would like to make a comment on it, all through our program today, I get a sense that there is being who I am, I live it sometimes too, but there is a pool between what can be accomplished creatively and what imagination can be expressed, and then what can be marketed and monetized and actually sold to people. I think Mr. Cobonpue may have found a secret to bridge that gap, but in some of the proposed laws that have been discussed, and with my apologies to the Undersecretary, but the standardized Filipino recipes idea has sparked some controversy in the last few days. I think what a lot of creative people are worried that in order to get in on the economic train, their innovation and their creativity is going to be put within limits. So how do you still encourage people to be creative, without limits, and yet still find ways to to sell what they come up with. Well, Undersecretary, you deal with the policy side of things. So, how about you first?
Yeah, thank you, Ben, for those points that you raised. The gap between what can be accomplished in a creative way versus what creative products or services that could be monetized. I think that's part one of your question, and then the other one on the issue that has really, I think, caused a lot of noise in the community. But on the first point, well, my group is actually focusing in terms of promoting more innovation, as this is actually the focus of our new industrial policy. We're focusing on, at the center or at the heart of our policies would be innovation and creativity, where all of these things that we're discussing right now would fall under. And we, of course, try to identify what are the basic or the most fundamental policies and programs that should be in place in order for us to address the barriers preventing us from becoming more innovative and becoming more productive and competitive. And we have programs for startups, for those people that are just starting to create or bring forward new ideas in terms of products or services. I've mentioned earlier the various support programs that the department will be implementing soon. And it's not only, it has a program, a startup venture fund that is going to address the finance issue, the financial difficulties that most startups are having. So there is a fund amounting to, currently it's at around 250 to 300 million pesos. It's not a lot, I know, but it's something that we could start with. So we have that. Apart from this startup venture fund, we are also working together. It's not only DTI that is involved in terms of supporting our startups, the creative startups more specifically, but there's also the Department of Science and Technology, which is in charge of providing research grants and research support to our startups. And then there's also the Department of DICT that is providing as well support for new startups. So all of us are working together in order to provide the needs of our startups, depending, of course, on the stage where they are in terms of the products that they are developing. Mostly, DTI would be focusing on startup activities for those startups that are already ready to commercialize, ready to enter the market, or those that have already gone through the most difficult phase, which is the valley of death in their stage of development. So we have all these programs addressing the financial, along with other support to provide and help support the development of the ideas, development of the products of our startups. And on the other point, on the adobo controversy, on the standards, let me just clarify that probably there was some miscommunication, and in fact, the secretary already issued the clarification. He already made a statement during the weekend, but we're not trying to create new standards for adobo. As you've probably seen in my presentation, well, in fact, gastronomy was not there, but I have a separate presentation, which was also presented in one of the hearings of Toff on the current state of Philippine gastronomy. And our proposal is really to link together our gastronomy sector with tourism, as well as with agro-food, that's I think what UNESCO has been promoting in terms of the criteria that they are using in selecting the most creative city in terms of gastronomy. We've also seen a lot of examples of countries that became very successful by putting together industry, business, and culture, putting this all together and promoting our the growth and development of our sectors. This is really very important. What we try to do is to actually not to create standards for adobo, but or for any other Filipino dish, not for lechon or for any other culinary heritage that we have. But it's really more about linking together our different regions and actually promoting our culinary heritage, linking our farmers, linking the art, the culture that would go with all of these things, culture, technology, even. We need to incorporate that, considering that there are already new technologies out there that we could use in order to level up and make our industries more competitive. And also that's important in order for us to differentiate ourselves, similar to what Kenneth has been doing. He's been combining a lot of new ideas, a lot of technologies as well in the work that he is doing. And hence, I think that's one basic thing that we can pursue as we try to implement our policies and programs in developing our creative industry. And right now, we're really focusing in terms of formulating the different roadmaps. We're working together as well with the other government agencies who are in charge of the different activities. As you know, right now, I've also mentioned in the presentation the many difficulties and constraints that we're faced with. Because in order for us to really become successful, we need to work together. It's not only the government agencies working together, but it's really a whole of society approach. We need to work with the industries. We need to work with academia as well as with the other sectors in society in trying to carry out all these really very important activities that must be implemented and involving, like what I said, it's a whole of society approach. So this would involve even our workers, our farmers, our fisher folk. They need to be involved because they are a part of this. If by focusing on the roadmaps right now, what we try to do is really to identify the most binding constraints preventing the development of these creative industries, come up with solutions, work together with all the different stakeholders in order for us to really be able to maximize the current resources that we have. Like as emphasized already earlier, we do not have enough budget, but we have some money, but we need to make sure that we're able to spend all of this in a very efficient way. And that would only happen if all the different government agencies would work together, if we are able to go beyond the fragmented approach that we currently are faced with right now. And I think that's really one important contribution of the bill that Toff is pursuing, and that's why all of us really are very supportive, because it would not only address our problem with respect to resources, but it has really, it was a vehicle, it was a platform or a venue that brought all of us together. And I'm really hoping that with this momentum is going to continue, and that at the end of the day we'll be able to come up with all these programs and projects and policies that would effectively address these difficulties that we're facing right now, and eventually for us to maximize all the potentials out there and make use of this in order to help the economic recovery of the country. I mean, it's really important. We've provided you with all the numbers in terms of the importance of this sector, in terms of its economic contribution. We are aware of the current difficulties that we have, and hence, by putting all our heads together and working in a more harmonious way, I strongly believe that we'll really be able to make use of our creative industries to help us revive the economy, as well as to be able to realize our goal of a more sustainable and inclusive economic development.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Let's have some final thoughts from our guests today, and appreciate everybody spending so much time with us. Ian, any last words? We'll start with you.
No, thank you for this opportunity. I think harnessing creativity of the Filipino artist and in my area, the musician, I think it's a long-term play. In general, the music industry is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of passion to stick to it, and it's a hit-based industry. So the gap between someone who has a hit and someone who doesn't is very wide. It's a high risk, high reward industry. So I guess from a long-term perspective, to be able to support artists to create and innovate and still monetize from it is a challenge. But I guess in the long run, if we're going for the international arena, I think we can still. I think we have a chance of utilizing the talent of Filipinos abroad who have made it, and collaborate with them and reach out and use that network to be able to sort of elevate our craft locally so that it can go internationally.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cobonpue. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'd like to thank the Manila Times for holding this creativity forum, to Kong Toff and to USEC Fita, and thank you very much to my fellow speakers. I think it's really good that we have this forum, this debate about creativity and what it takes to make the Philippines into a creative power. And I believe that we've been left behind in so many other things like technology and science, manufacturing. But the creativity is really around where I think Filipinos can excel, given the right government policies and support. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Merlee, any last words?
I would think creativity. First, I want to thank everyone in this forum. It's so enlightening to be hearing about creativity being discussed suddenly in the limelight. We always feel that we're always the brains behind and pushing it forward and making money out of that as part of the economy. Pushing economy would be very, very ideal for me. In my industry, it's all about selling. And when we sell about messages, we sell about ideas, we sell visions of companies, we sell people when they run for politics, for positions and offices, we sell. But what the creatives need to know is how they sell. And when you say sell, it is a business. So how can you merge creativity and good business sense is what I teach with my young creatives as well. When I was young, nobody would teach me that. Just create. And then part of the business is not ours. It's about the managers and account people, servicing people. But when I grew up, the power of creativity is when you know the business of creativity. And I think when you know that, you'll put a good reward to that. And that's a way to inspire more creatives to be doing this. As a country, we should push it as a business as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that is a very valuable thought. Thank you for that. Clink, why don't you wrap us up?
Why don't we ask USEC Fita, and I see Kong Toff here as well, maybe if they have just final words before I do that. USEC Fita, final words?
Thank you, Mr. Dante Ang. By the way, we will be getting in touch with you because we will be starting the formulation of the roadmap for the magazines and printed
Okay.
media. So we'll get in touch with you. But
Not
thank
for
you.
Ben's editorial on the adobo.
But thank you so much. I think I really enjoyed this morning's session. It's very inspiring, especially listening to everyone, and know that we are here to work with you, to support you, and all of us working together to take advantage of the opportunities arising from the creative sector. I think we're really moving in the right direction, combining business, combining technology and culture, which is similar to what Korea has done, and supporting our creative startups. I think the salt lamp that was earlier mentioned by Merlee, with these programs, future salt lamp developers would be able to get the necessary support from the government. And I think Philippines would finally be able to make a big mark, make a big contribution, and further enhance and expand the current position that we have right now in the international services, and expand it towards more high value added services, as creative services, as well as creative goods. Thank you so much.
Thank you. His camera's off, but Kong Toff, if you're still here with us, or anyway, I think he must be preparing for that committee meeting. I'm supposed to be at that basic ed committee meeting as well in a few minutes. But I'd like to thank everyone for their time today. I think we could talk about this topic for much longer, but we have our limitations. This afternoon now. We'd like to follow up with some maybe one-on-one interviews later on. So do expect us to reach out if you can indulge us in a follow-up interview later on, because there's really so much to cover. But on behalf of the Manila Times, thank you, everyone. And perhaps this is only a signal that maybe Blanca should organize a part 2 of this event.
Thank you, everyone.
I think so.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks for having all of you.
With you.
Thank
And
you.
see you again next
Thank
time.
you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bago pa man magsimulang tumigil ang mundo ng dahil sa pandemya, napakadami na namin ginaharap para lang magampanan ang aming tungkulin. Matugunan ang pangangailangan ng nakararami. Simula sa lungkot na dala ng pagsampa, hanggang sa iba't ibang klaseng trabaho na dinaranas namin sa araw-araw. Kalakip ang pangako ng magandang bukas. Patuloy kaming babangon para matugunan ang inyong pangangailangan. Patuloy naming iaalay ang aming oras at kakayahan para mapanatili kayong nakangiti. Patuloy kaming maglalayag sa iba't ibang dako ng mundo upang mapanatiling maayos ang inyong kalagayan. Ilan lang kami sa libu-libong manggagawa sa karagatan na nagnanais ng karampatang pagtrato at respeto. Para sa aming napiling larangan, sana sa araw na ito nilaan para sa amin, maisip rin kami. Nagmamahal, mga marinong Pilipino.
Fulfill your dreams. Whatever you're building will be there to make your dreams fly in the air. Wilcon Depot can, yeah. Whatever it is will be your hand to help you build your master plan. Wilcon Depot can build your future, fulfill your dreams. Whatever it is will be your hand to help you build your master plan. Wilcon Depot can. Wilcon Depot can. Wilcon Depot. You can dream anything you can. Build anything, whatever it is,
Pambansang Komisyon para sa Kultura at Mga Sining o ang National Commission for Culture and the Arts na nagpapanatiling laging umaapoy, magpakailanman ang lagablab ng imahinasyon para sa kasalukuyan na nagbibigay kapangyarihan sa sambayanang Pilipino. Sumasabuhay sa adhikain na ang kalinangang Filipino ay bukal ng kagalingang pambansa at pandaigdig. Sa hinaharap, inaasahan ang mas matatag na presensya sa mga rehiyon para sa mas malaganap na pagpapatupad ng mga polisiya at programang pangkultura. Ang lalo pang pagtataguyod ng mga creative industries. At ang patuloy na pagsigaw ng adhikain ang ating kultura, marangal. Malikhain. Mapagbago.